Meetings, how to avoid them. Meetings are a very interesting dilemma. You can either let meetings manage you, or you can manage meetings. Most people don't manage meetings. They let meetings manage them, meaning all the meetings show up on your calendar and you go to all the meetings, and when you're not at meetings, you get your other work done. You get your email done, you get your things you got to write up done, and you let those meetings drive you. Okay? The other thing is, if you don't think about meetings and plan out your strategy on meetings, you can also let meetings disrupt your entire organization. Meaning, somebody now needs to have a very important meeting because we're now shut down and we've got to address this issue. Now everybody has to move their meeting that they had on that time slot somewhere else. So don't let meetings just happen to you. When you're a leader and you have a group of people, think about how you want to manage your whole meeting process so that you can minimize the amount of meetings you have. For example, everybody has staff meetings. Okay. If everybody has staff meetings at different times, and you've got 11 managers, and they all do an hour staff meeting a week, and they all schedule it on a different day, on a different time, you are going to use up 11 hours of that week. That's 1/4 of your time is now tied up in staff meetings. Meaning one group or another is in the staff meeting. So whenever you now schedule a meeting, it bumps everybody who was in a staff meeting then. Now, what happens if you talk to all the managers and we say, we're all going to have staff meeting Tuesday mornings at 8 o'clock. Then how many hours of the week have you used? 1. You now have 39 hours available where you're all mutually free. Now, if a manager needs to schedule a meeting with all the other managers, is he going to pick the hour on Tuesday? No, because he's got staff meeting then. And he knows everybody else has got staff meeting then, so it would be stupid to pick that time. Okay? So, one way to avoid it is everybody be in concert on how they're doing meetings. Everybody meet on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock to do staff meeting. That means everybody's tied up in staff meeting all at the same time. You also know if you need to disseminate information, Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, you know all the managers are going to be in staff meeting. So what do? You make sure you give them the information before Tuesday at 8 o'clock. And once you've given them information out, it gets out to everybody the same day. It doesn't get out to everybody over a 2-week period. That's just one small example of only one meeting for the 11 managers. If you multiply that times a whole bunch, production meetings and ad hoc meetings and problem meetings and issues and things like that, you can have meetings every hour of every day and never have enough time mutually to have meetings. Okay? So you have to think about how can we coordinate. So one of the first things I did when I came to SwiftBack is I asked everybody for their meeting schedules. I got all the managers' meeting schedules and I put them all up on a spreadsheet and I said, okay, what are all the meetings we have? The first thing I did is say, okay, we're all going to have staff meetings on this day at this time. That was one of the first changes I made to meetings. That added 38 hours of the week that I could now schedule other meetings. Just that one change. Okay, then you have to ask yourself, do I really need a meeting for this problem? Somebody comes in your office, the sky's falling, the sky's falling and it's hitting people in the head. I'll say, okay, now, is that something I need to respond to immediately? Is it something that needs a meeting? Meaning you need everybody to come together to make a decision. Am I just transmitting information that, be aware that the sky is falling? So ask yourself, do you really need a meeting? Do you really need people to get together? You need a meeting when people have to discuss it in order to come up with a collaborative decision. You need an ad hoc meeting if it's an issue that shuts down the facility, impacts your ability to deliver a missile to the submarine. If it's dangerous, That's when you have to have an ad hoc meeting. Not every single day you have 6 ad hoc meetings because you're handling things that came up that need to be worked. If you have lots of things that come up that need to be worked, then you should have a way to deal with that. Hence, what we call SMILE meeting and staff meeting. So you take the senior managers, and every week we have the SMILE meeting on Monday at 1. We have staff meeting on Thursday at 1. So, issue comes up, Mark comes to me, the sky is falling. I say, well, do you think it's going to fall on everybody else? Well, no, but I think people ought to be aware of it. I'll say, okay, can you come to, now, if it's Wednesday, I'll say, gee, it's an issue that the senior managers need to be involved in, and it's going to have potential repercussions on employees. I'll say, come to the Thursday meeting at 1 o'clock and brief the managers. If it's not an issue that is employee related, I'll say, okay, come to the SMILE meeting next Monday and brief the managers. Okay, so almost everything gets tabled either into the staff meeting. Staff meeting is just the senior managers, and it's the real senior managers, because that's the one we talk about employee discipline, we talk about union issues, we talk about salary issues, salary performance, PRSs, promotions, all the things that are people related that we don't need staff people to hear about. We'll do those on Thursday. If it's a program issue and schedules issues and cost issues and technical issues, we handle those on Monday. So the senior managers are always available every Monday at 1 or every Thursday at 1 because we have a SMILE meeting and we have a staff meeting. So you can table almost anything unless it's urgent, either to the Monday or the Thursday. Well, what has that done? We didn't create 5 meetings for the 5 subjects that came up. They all got funneled into the meetings that were already there, so I didn't use up a whole bunch of more hours in the week. Okay? So I'm not letting meetings drive me to constantly meeting and handling this little issue, and then meeting again and handling this little issue, and then meeting here. Because the other thing that happens about meetings is meetings tend to be a certain amount of time. In Sunnyvale, you almost never have a meeting unless it's 1 hour long. Now, one of the things that used to really throw them off in Sunnyvale is I would have a meeting, and when I was done, I would adjourn. And they would say, well, that was only 20 minutes. Oh, yeah? Oh, well, I was planning on being here for an hour. Well, okay. That's the other fallacy about meetings, is it becomes a socially acceptable thing that a meeting will be an hour, or the meeting will always be a half hour, and you will spend the half hour, or you will spend the hour, whether you have an hour's worth of content or not. So you got to change the culture that a meeting just isn't an hour, because that's what meetings take, is an hour. And you got to get yourself out of that mode of, when we meet, it's an hour. In Sunnyvale, it was like every meeting had to be an hour. And I said, that doesn't have to happen. I'm going to meet for 5 minutes. I'm done. We're leaving. And it would really throw people off at first until they started getting used to it. The other is, if you need communication, figure out a way to communicate quickly and efficiently and effectively. One of the things they started here, I don't even know how many years ago it is there's a 6:15 call-in for all the senior managers every morning. So every morning they call the call-in number, and they talk to each other for between 5 and 15 minutes. And all they do is say, what's happening today we all need to be aware of? Is there any significant issues? Is there any problem? I know that meeting is happening. I don't call into it because I let the senior managers work amongst themselves. But let's say something's happened. Terrorist attack, something like that. I can pick up the phone at 6:15 and dial in because I know they're all on the phone. Okay, I need to get to all of you. You all need to do this before 9 o'clock. I think I've done that 2 or 3 times this year. It's not all the time. But I know it's there, and I know they all call in at that time. we finally got Jay Countryman to have a 6:30 meeting every morning. So between 6:30 and 7, we go around the country and ask, what is it I need to know about? What's going on? What is it we have concerns about? What significant issues are there? Whatever. So he'll say, Carol, what's happening at Swiftback? And I'll say, you know, A is happening, or shut down because of lightning and grounding, you know, whatever it is, he gets a, 1-minute dump. And he'll say, okay, Kat, what do you got going on at LAMP? John Maroka, what's happening in manufacturing? And he'll go around the country, and now, by the way, it's around the world, because his UK people that now report to him call into that meeting as well. So for a half an hour, we all touch base. Now, if we're done in 10 minutes, we're done. Move on, go on to the next thing. If it takes a full half hour, it's great. When the half hour's up, Jay says, got a hot topics meeting, got to run. We'll talk tomorrow. So the majority of our communications are happening like that. If the meeting's only going to take 10 minutes and maybe there's a question I need to ask Jay, I'll say, Jay, since the meeting is adjourning, can I give you a call on your phone number because I've got a question that I don't need to talk to everybody about? He'll say, sure. So we hang up, I call him, I ask him the question, we're done, move on. Did we have to schedule meetings? No. Do we have to schedule briefings? No. And then he's starting to do what we do now with the SMILE meeting and the staff meeting is if he's got a change control board meeting that he needs to have, either approving budgets or schedules or whatever for the program, we'll tag on to that 6:30 meeting. And we'll say, we need to go over the ARA proposal with you on Wednesday morning, right after your 6:30 meeting. So we'll tag it on. All the people that need to be there will come. When we get to Wednesday, we do our around the world thing, and then we get right to the point, go over what we need to do on that proposal, and approve the budget, and move on. So we've reduced an enormous amount of meetings by being strategic and thoughtful about how we're doing meetings. And so I encourage you as leaders, you can create an enormous amount of work for your people to have meetings. So think about how you're doing them, strategize how you're doing them, try to be efficient and effective on how you're doing them. And periodically you got to readjust everybody because things start to slip around and people start moving their meetings or regular program meetings start getting on our calendars and it bumps the other meetings that we had. So periodically you got to adjust your schedule and say, well, you know what, staff meeting at 1 doesn't work anymore. We keep getting bumped by PMR and PBRBs and all of that stuff. Let's move it to every Thursday at 10. So, be aware of it and make the adjustments as you need so that you're managing meetings. The meetings aren't managing you. And
I think a big thing, Carol, too, is that I think that we do really well up here is that meetings are for something. And I mean, it will drive a behavior, actions, or decisions. Even a status meeting should be your statusing to drive a behavior, action, or decision.
right.
But to just have status just for the sake of status is largely a waste of time. Unless there's an anticipated action or decision point that we're trying to get to.
Right. Well, the nice part about when people get used to not having a significant number of meetings where they can actually do other things is they do get a little spoiled about it. So you can actually use having meetings as a motivator. One of the things I did in Sunnyvale is we'd have scheduled meetings every week. So I said, okay, we're going over this same information over and over and over, which, oh, by the way, they could just email me, except that if anybody's behind, we need to talk about those issues. So then I started to say, gee, if you're on schedule, all you got to do is email me your information and you don't have to come to the meeting. It was amazing how quickly my organization got on schedule.
You did that on CI too, right? You did that here with CI.
Yeah, well, the managers today, if we're not getting something done, I don't say, well, okay, let's start meeting tomorrow and we're going to discuss this tomorrow, and we're going to get it done. What I say is, okay, next month, starting on the 3rd, I'm going to have a weekly meeting on CI until everybody's got their CI initiatives completed for this year. So, a month later, only one person showed up to the meeting. and he only had one item, and it was almost closed. That was more effective than having the meeting. So that's the whole thing about, don't let meetings manage you, you manage them.
Good stuff, girl.
Any other questions about meetings?
To tie this in, should managers schedule a set time to talk to employees? That this is 1 to
Absolutely.
1:30 on Wednesdays, this is when my open door policy is. I mean,
Absolutely.
if it's an emergency, you come in anytime.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. And if you're managing meetings and they're not managing you, you'll have the time to do that. But if meetings are managing you, you won't. And you'll wonder, how come I never have time to talk to my people? And they'll always wonder, how come I can never get to that person and talk to them? Sometimes there's a lot going on in the program, and you get a lot of meetings driving you from Sunnyvale, and you can't manage them, unfortunately. So it does perturbate things. But the more you're managing your meetings, the more time you have available for your people. And if you've got a set time where you say, hey, I'm going to be available, I'm going to have an office hour at this time. If anybody's got any issues, they want to come see me, I'll be in my office doing email, walk on in, have a chair. We'll use that time to talk.
One of the things that, and this has to do with statusing, which is somewhat of a different subject, but like on Jay's IOR and PMR, when I give him his CI and risk status, it's not real time. And we've agreed that it won't be real time. It's month end. So I only have to do it month end. And then it's the exact same data going out to the customer in the middle of the month in IOR and PMR. So
yeah, managing the content of the meeting is important as well.
It's month end. And everybody's happy with that.